What is going on, YouTube? What is going on, Kansas City? And what is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Beat of KC. Ladies and gentlemen, I felt I needed to do another video on Julio Jones. And the reason is because, let's be real, Shannon Sharpe had Julio Jones on live on their show. And Julio Jones comes out and says, I'm out of here. So, we're going to talk about this. Could this potentially lead to a Kansas City Chiefs trade for Julio Jones? We're again going to recap some of the information we discussed in the last video, but we're going to provide a lot more, especially with some new perspective. And really, what could it take to get Julio Jones? So if you're interested, I suggest you stay tuned right after this. But before we dive into probably the most discussed topic currently in the NFL, which is absolutely amazing, I ask that you guys smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, comment down below, and now it's time to talk Julio Jones in this video. Let's go! So right out the gate, ladies and gentlemen, I feel we need to discuss his contract, and the reason is because majority of the teams that are going after Julio Jones or are thinking about going after Julio Jones have to consider the fact that his contract is significant and it is for more than 1 year. Now, most teams are going to need to move cap, free up some cap. There is a few teams that I think could possibly make it happen, but from a Kansas City Chiefs perspective, there will have to be some things moved around. Some things that have been discussed are a Tyrann Mathieu extension, maybe potentially have a player involved in the trade for Julio Jones, and then on top of that, there has been topics of potentially, having a player restructure, and I've also seen that there's a potential of, depending on what is given for Julio Jones, that the Atlanta Falcons may take on some of that contract. So it's all kind of just, there's a lot that is going to play into this, and really why I don't think a move has happened right away for really anybody. Plus, we are waiting for the post-June 1 because that saves a lot of money for the Atlanta Falcons. So let's dive into this contract and then start talking about some salary cap. I do have to, again, give Kevin Moses some mad props for posting this tweet. He put, here's the contract, pay attention to the guaranteed money in parentheses. So trading Julio Jones after the June 1st deadline, it says Falcons dead cap in 2021 is $7.75 million. After that June 1, like it states, it would then be reduced. They would save $15.3 million. So that's why it's significant for this trade to happen in 2021. If it were to occur in 2022, his salary would be $15.5 million, and they would only save $3.7 million. So it is a significant move if they were to make this occur in 2021, and they would save a good amount of money. So the new team acquires a 2021, and this is where it gets a really big deal because it is $15.3 million of fully guaranteed money. And so that's what's significant, is the fact that it is a fully guaranteed portion. In 2022, you're looking at about $11.5 million. $2 million guaranteed, and then in 2023 again another $11.3 million. And then also something to consider, which is going to be the fact that Julio Jones is going to be 32 years old, and by the time this deal is done, you're looking at 34, 35 years old. So really, you're talking about an aging receiver. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize this more than I've ever emphasized this enough. This is Julio Jones, ladies and gentlemen. You're talking about an athlete, a receiver that brings way more to the game and way more to the team than just going and running routes and making one-handed freak catches, two-touching to get to the Super Bowl. I mean, he brings a mentality, he brings leadership, he brings a mindset that is going to help with younger players. I mean, this is a big deal. But the big question then becomes for the Kansas City Chiefs, is it worth the risk and everything that comes involved with trading for Julio Jones? So now we're going to dive in because this is where it gets really, really good. And this is going to be from Adam Schefter. And he says the Falcons prefer not to trade Julio Jones in the NFC, but they would do so for the right price. But now with Jones wanting out of Atlanta, they're looking for the best value in either conference. So obviously their first choice would be to get him out of the NFC. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that speaks to what they know Julio Jones still provides and what he could obviously do if he goes to a competitor, specifically a very good competitor in the NFC. So they're like, hey, we want him out of the conference. We want him over in the AFC. Hey, that right there says Kansas City, if I've ever heard it, but we will have to see for sure. So this next tweet is from Adam Schefter as well, and it says Atlanta has asked teams that have inquired about Julio Jones for a first-round draft pick in return. Per sources, others around the league don't believe the Falcons ultimately will get a first for the perennial Pro Bowl wide receiver. I can understand the idea behind that. They want to maximize and optimize as much as they possibly can for Julio Jones. I think where, from a business perspective, you are talking about a perennial Pro Bowl wide receiver. You're talking about one of the best to ever play the position. I think what in return is you got to configure is the fact that he is an aging receiver. Another thing you have to consider is the fact that this contract is fully guaranteed for this coming year. And I think that is where, if you were to incorporate a first round pick, that is something that they would have to consider at maybe reducing or taking on a little bit of that. And that's really where I think it's going to come down to. I also feel that the team that is most really desperate for Julio Jones will definitely throw in a first because they want to make sure the deal happens. I do think that, unfortunately, it sounds like the ball is leaving the Atlanta Falcons court and it's going to a person that's going to be receiving Julio Jones. I honestly feel that it's still somewhat in Atlanta's court because you're dangling out one of the best receivers to play that position, and if you're really truly going after the Super Bowl, I think he can obviously push you to that level depending on where he goes. Specifically the Kansas City Chiefs. Think about how scary, again, that offense would be. You're talking about Tyreek Hill. You're talking about Travis Kelce. You're talking about Julio Jones. And did I mention Patrick Mahomes throwing the football to every person I just listed? That is absolutely incredible. Oh, wait, it only gets better in this completely revamped, solidified offensive line. Orlando Brown, Joe Tooney, Austin Blythe, or Creed Humphrey. Then you're talking about right guard, in which you could be talking about Kyle Long, LDT. Then let's go ahead and go to the right tackle, which you got Lucas Niang, Mike Remmers. Ladies and gentlemen, this offensive line is going to do wonders for Patrick Mahomes. And then on top of that, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, backed by Jerick McKinnon back there. This offense would be absolutely phenomenal, and it would just be full steam ahead. My 100% opinion here, and this is me bringing this content to you guys. This is my thoughts. Do I think that Brett Veach, Andy Reid go out and get Julio Jones? I think there is a possibility that this could happen. I think when you start to think long-term, and this is something that I mentioned today, I think when you start talking long-term, you do have some pretty significant contracts that are going to be coming about within the organization. We go out and trade for a starting left tackle in Orlando Brown. He is going to need a contract, ladies and gentlemen. If he proves that he deserves the money at left tackle, you're going to have to pay that man, and you're going to have to pay him a decent amount of money. I mean, we saw what Trent Williams obviously ended up taking in from the 49ers. I would assume that Orlando Brown is going to fetch something very, very similar to that, especially if he is that all-elite left tackle that we expect him to be. Another one you have to consider is, are you wanting to keep the Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu around for a longer period of time? And if that's the case, then you will need to extend him for sure because this is the last year of his contract. And then looming right behind all of that is Tyreek Hill. We understand that there was some stuff occurring in his last negotiations that really kind of gave him a hometown discount, as you can say. But if he continues to perform at an elite level, we are starting to approach a very similar situation in which Julio Jones signed that contract with the Atlanta Falcons. And it could be a significant amount of money for Tyreek Hill. So I really think we as fans have to, put our blinders on for a second and not imagine that Julio Jones is there dangling in front of us as a trade piece. We need to understand that we still have to reassure and give contracts to players that have been within the organization, helped us win a Super Bowl, and really make sure that we get them back and back into the organization. So those are some things that I definitely think we need to consider before we even really make this trade. But I do think that if you see an extension from the Honey Badger, and I do think that if you see maybe a restructure from a player, I think that means that they are going after Julio Jones. Just my opinion, because they did reassure and really clear some stuff to go make that happen. We do have to also consider that the salary cap is probably going to go up in the upward direction. You're talking about new TV deals, but another thing to consider too is that they're still pushing for full capacity when it comes to the stadiums. And obviously that means more money that's going to be generated for the NFL, which then in return causes the salary cap to go up. So I do envision the salary cap getting a little bit more in a positive direction for most of these NFL teams, which then also could suit well for a Chiefs acquisition of Julio Jones. So that is my thoughts. Those are my opinions, and I just think it would be absolutely a monster trade. I think it would send such ripples within the NFL, and it would really send a statement from the Kansas City Chiefs saying that we're not playing around and we're going out and we're trying to win as many Super Bowls as we possibly can with Patrick Mahomes, with Andy Reid, and this entire organization. I think that really just sends a bold message, really an intimidating message. So I appreciate you guys swinging by, watching this video. I really do think whoever ends up getting Julio Jones it's gonna be so impactful. But I do appreciate you guys swinging by and checking out this video. I appreciate you checking out the Beat of KC. And as always, have a good day.